I was asked to view Mars, and it was actually a very interesting photo. The photograph looked like a footprint on the in the Mars dust that was taken by the Mars rover, and it looked like a footprint. It looked like a boot print, and so that was the target, and they just said the target is a location, describe the target. And I started to remote view, and suddenly I really felt like I was standing on the surface of Mars. It was very, very orange colored, that orange color, and the ground was very powdery, and the wind was blowing, and it was freezing cold. And I knew that if I were physically at this target, whatever it is, whatever this location is, if I were physically there, I wouldn't be able to endure the cold temperatures because it was so cold. So while I was there, though, I felt like I had moved back in time, like millions of years, and that because I was there, I suddenly saw these obelisks, big obelisks. And so I moved to the top of one of the obelisks, and I perceived that that obelisk, the purpose of the obelisk at the top was to transmit and receive information. And so my husband was there, and he was actually doing what we call monitoring me. As you can see, my book is called Monitoring. He was monitoring me, and he said, move to the source that is transmitting to the obelisks. And when he said that, suddenly I was in a totally different dimension. And I was perceiving these beings that were this beautiful turquoise blue, and there were three of them, and they were kind of amorphous. It was difficult to perceive, like to see them clearly, like you would if you put on glasses when you're nearsighted. I couldn't really see them very clearly, but when they were there, and we jokingly called them the lava lamp people, because if you've ever seen a lava lamp, you know how that blobs kind of go up like this. They just look like these kind of extended blobs of turquoise blue, but they were transmitting such a loving feeling. It was so loving and so beautiful. And they were expressing a lot of concern for the planet. And this was probably back in, oh gosh, I don't know. It was probably like 2010, 2011. I don't know. It was maybe even earlier than that. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But the love and the information that came through. And interestingly, now my husband is a retired forensic scientist. So
Goodness.
he's a scientist. And I was saying things that I was picking up from these beings that he knew I didn't know anything about. He knew that I was saying things that were way beyond my capacity to talk about, because I am not a scientist. But he understood what I was saying because of his scientific background. And so it was very fascinating. Also, we were in a very hot environment. The temperature was warm, and I was having, at that time in my life, I was having hot flashes. And so I just hated being there in that room because it was always too hot. And suddenly I was freezing. He had to wrap me up. My lips turned blue. I was so cold, and he had to wrap me, in a blanket. And so,
Wow.
this is a very real thing.